Greetings and welcome to the Badger Cave's West Wing, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Your sinuous hosts for this evening are myself, Supreme Doge in Charge, our polecat punster Hannah, Dr. Ranner McCam, Panda at Large, Max, Simpsons kin, not jaundiced, and our Anchorilla Scott. This evening, we will be covering the following topics and more. The cast and crew of Hamilton expressed concerns to Vice President-elect Mike Pence. Are these concerns based in reality? College electors are being threatened to change their votes to Clinton under threat or harm or even death. There is a new diagnostic tool to help catch prostate cancer earlier, but there may be hidden risks. Mark Zuckerberg has a plan to fight what he calls fake news, and we will look at it. Fire departments in New York are forbidden from having pictures of President-elect Trump on their walls. They can't hang them. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Feminist darling celebrity Jennifer Lawrence calls for sanity regarding the left's reaction to the presidential election, and the Mary Sue declares her unwoman, revoking her card. Anyway, if you want to listen to this topic or any further personalized discussion with the Badgers on select topics, become a patron. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Now, here is our Anchorilla Scott with the news. But before I pass it off to Scott, I want to make a couple of mentions that are not actually on the list. One, Bill C-16. Despite an underwhelming number of Canadians who identify as a gender or gender identity other than man or woman, Bill C-16 was passed in the Canadian Parliament's House of Commons on November 18th. And is now undergoing its first reading in the Senate as of today, November 22nd. The Parliament website states, quote, "This enactment amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. The enactment also amends the criminal code to extend the protection against hate propaganda set out in that act to any section of the public that is distinguished by gender identity or expression." So I just so you guys know that it's passed, and Jordan Peterson's nightmare has become potentially reality. And this is something of under quite a bit of discussion. Actually, Bunny and I are going to be talking about it some more tomorrow on the Doge and Bunny show, as we're going to be looking at Liana Kay's reaction to this whole Bill C-16 discussion, and holy shit, does she say some dumbass shit in her video. So... seriously.
I'm shocked. Liana Kay said dumbass shit? Oh, I mean, she's never done that before. What's gotten into her?
So, yeah, we're going to be looking at that more, but there we go. Does anybody have any immediate thoughts on the Bill C-16 thing before I move on to the other small thing?
I was just... Oh, go ahead.
Secular blasphemy. This is a very dangerous combination of concepts, folks. It's the holy grail of doomsday signs. It's like bacteria that can eat plastic. Once this happens, we are all fucked.
But Mike, there is bacteria that can eat plastic.
Well, once it's let loose on the trash vortex, it's going to take the seas, and from there on,
well, yeah, it's a good point.
Here, I thought you were talking about, like women who run up huge credit card debts and then expect their husbands to pay them. It's bacteria that can eat plastic, right?
Oh, the trash vortex.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought when I found out about 16 passing is, so this means it's illegal to call someone a misogynist unless they identify as one. No, it's not going to work out like that. No. It's just illegal to not use people's pronouns, but it's a hop, skip, and a jump to it's illegal to blaspheme against feminism, right?
But it's not law yet, right? It passed the House, but not the Senate. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's likely going to become law because it pretty much passed unanimously without any dissent from any of the major parties.
Well, is the Canadian populace participating in the process by contacting their senators? Are they letting their senators know that they feel that this is a bad law, that it's not actually going to achieve what they think it's intended to achieve, and that instead it's going to cause all kinds of problems?
Oh, certainly they are, and they would certainly be doing it under the most private of pretenses, because this story has been pretty unusually big thing, especially when you consider how mainstream certain social justice stories have been over the last few years. This one has been pretty big in the city of Toronto. Like, I went to Pizza the other day, and I picked up a random newspaper, and I saw an article about Bill C-16. So I'd assume it's sort of gotten into the major Canadian public consciousness by now.
When's your next election?
Oh, God. Well, it's in 3 years.
No, good grief! So if this passes, it's gonna be a law for a minimum of 3 years.
Yeah.
I see. Now, my take on this is people need to make sure that their representatives are aware that they're going to get voted out of office if they pass shit like this, and then B, back it up by actually voting them out of office if they vote for this shit.
Oh, I guarantee you that Justin Trudeau is only going to be a 4-year term prime minister. He's already very unpopular, especially among not just the Conservative Party, but also the Liberal Party with which he's representing right now. I can guarantee you that the Conservative government will be in power in 3 years.
So he's your Obama.
Yeah, kind of.
Here's the thing, though. You forget we're in the darkest timeline right now. Mm-hmm. Anything can happen.
Or
I think about it this way. For a lot of people have been a lot of people in Canada have been predicting, especially when some of the people that I was talking to at GG in Toronto last Sunday. Well, first we had Brexit, then we had the Trumpen, the
trumpeting.
The trumpeting, yes.
I
was going to say the Trumpenreich, but I was looking for something a little more politically correct. But what the hell am I doing on Honey Badger Radio, anyways? But anyways.
Hey-o.
Yeah, I was going to say the next thing that people are anticipating is the same thing is going to happen in Canada because people are sick of the same stuff that Britain and the U.S. is sick of,
Yep, very much so.
By the way, Brian, before we move on to the next topic, I was just going to say I am, obviously that I'm connected to this in certain ways. I'm connected with the Students in Support of Free Speech Club at the University of Toronto, and I'm aware of how this whole thing is affecting them and how people have been bullying and harassing them. So I was wondering if it would be possible if I could be like a guest or just come in for like a few minutes while you guys are talking tomorrow, or is that just exclusively you? And
No, you can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can come in. Yes.
Right,
actually,
what time is it tomorrow?
It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern time. So 3 p.m. your time. Okay. So yes, so that could be fun.
And if this does pass, to Canadians who oppose this, I recommend the 4chan approach. Find its weaknesses and exploit them to the degree that the system cannot handle it.
Yep.
In order to break it.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Break
it. Because people, the people writing this thing, they haven't thought about the ways that it can be used against them. So use it against them. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything like fucking bad per se. Like, don't try and hurt people, but like use the law. Find out how the law works.
Stay within the confines of it.
Stay within the confines of it and take it to its extreme to show them just how bad it can get.
Yes.
Basically, rub their fucking noses in it. Be like, look, you see what you fucking did? Do like,
Think of yourself as the law's beta testers.
Yeah, exactly. Play test it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Play
so
test the fuck out of it. Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I got to move on. We got lots of stories. So
Yes, sir.
the other thing is, I want to give a quick mention. Saturday was International Men's Day. So probably you guys knew that, but you probably also noticed that hardly anyone in the mainstream talked about it. Duh, that's just the way it goes. We wanted to give a quick mention. Hannah wrote this, so I'm just going to read off what she wrote in our room where we plan out our stories for the week. Feminists responded to this discussion on International Men's Day by 1, making fun of it, obviously. Number 2, repeating the old "every day is International Men's Day. You don't need a day line." Number 3, trying to make it about he for she, which I believe there was there was actually something about he for she on International Men's Day. And then 4, one of my favorites, trying to make it about feminism's narrative on masculinity, which is essentially about toxic masculinity. Oh, men commit suicide because they're not allowed to cry, or they're not more like women. That was the mention. And also, lastly, you may have noticed that on Google did not have a Google Doodle for International Men's Day, which of course they didn't. And not only did they not have a Google Doodle for Men's Day, but they didn't have a Google Doodle for anything, which means they actually made it a point not to put anything up that day, because International Men's Day is pretty obvious. I mean, they put up really obscure shit on their Google Doodles, but they didn't put that up at all.
And there were several other holidays. In fact, feminists made a point to say in the International Men's Day hashtag on Twitter that it was just a coincidence that International Men's Day came up on International Toilet Day. So it was a conspicuously absent Google Doodle day.
Right.
There's an International Toilet Day?
Yeah, there's an International Toilet Day.
And
There's an
apparently it's on
International
the same
for-
day as Men's Day.
Like it's starting to get to the point where there needs to be like a non-pornographic corollary for Rule 34. If it exists, there's an international day for it.
I wonder if there's a Badger Day.
There you go.
Yeah, there is.
There is, okay. So, like, you have to do something
wanna-
like that.
I have had somebody alert me to that in the past.
There's just very quickly, there's a meme on this page that I run. It's oddly enough titled "Social Justice Warriors." It's a picture of the Rule 34 search engine, and somebody typed in "female wage gap," and nothing popped up. And it's like the adage is, "Oh well, if it exists, there's porn of it, so clearly it doesn't exist." So.
Oh, that's great. There's
I see
no
what you did there.
there's no wage gap porn.
Yep, there's dragon porn, there's unicorn porn, but there's no wage gap porn.
There you go. Okay, so and then the last thing I want to mention, I'm just asking the folks in the that are watching, as well as the guys in the panel. I hope you are enjoying your Movember so far. How is your mustache or beard doing? And if you can't grow one, then just let your vag hair grow. Just whatever. Celebrate it in your own way. Put a beard on that clam. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the stories now. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about Hamilton, Agenda Over
You
Entertainment?
expect me to read after saying bearded clam? Really?
Yes, I do.
Really? I'm feeling traumatic right now. Let's see. Agenda Over Entertainment. Last week, Vice President-elect Mike Pence attended a performance of the award-winning Broadway show Hamilton. Pence entered and was seated to a chorus of booing from the fellow performance attendees. As the show played out, certain politically charged lines, such as "Immigrants, we get the job done," drew roaring applause from the crowd. Also during the performance, when King George III sings the line, "When your people say they hate you, don't come crawling back to me," the performer turned to Pence and blew a raspberry at him. As the play ended, the cast members had their own message for Pence. Cast member Brandon Dixon addressed Pence directly and said the following: "We, the diverse America, who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights. We truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and work on behalf of all of us." An interesting bit of virtue signaling that, when dissected, tells you tells you everything you need to know about the mindset of the performers and many leftists. They fully committed to the mainstream media's lies and have no problems furthering the irrational fear that a Trump-Pence presidency will somehow strip minorities of their rights. The championing of diversity also comes off as a bit laughable from a Broadway show whose open casting call specifically sent out a specific request for non-white applicants. Pence eventually responded to the Hamilton performers last Sunday, stating, "I know this is a very disappointing time for people that did not see their candidate win the national election. I know that this is a very anxious time for some people, and I just want to reassure people that what President-elect Donald Trump said on the election night, he absolutely meant from the bottom of his heart. He is preparing to be the president of all the people of the United States of America."
I wouldn't call it harassment, but I think if you live in a country where you can sort of yell at the vice president-elect like that and not get taken out to the gulags or shot or whatnot, count yourself lucky. Is the worst thing he could do is cry harassment.
That's the funny thing is, there was a cartoon that went around that Anti-Gamergate, somebody from Anti-Gamergate created and put up during the sort of the highlight time of Gamergate when there was a lot of arguing back and forth taking place, where the individual that created it took things like if you don't necessarily reply to their Twitter argument for a couple of hours because you're at work, and then when you get off work, you get back on Twitter and you reply to the last thing they said to you and everything, they portrayed that as the other debater coming to their house and following them to work and being in their room at night arguing with them, like as if they can't, close the tab that has Twitter when they go to bed at night.
Mm-hmm. You just turn it off and walk away.
Yeah, this is kind
Close
of
your eyes,
real
nigga.
life. This is probably Trump's first taste of that, because I don't think he's ever been in politics before, but this is par for the course if you are a civil servant. From the top office in the United States right down to the lowest ward councilman in your community. And I know that because my mother was a ward councilman and then a councilman at large. And we had people calling us all hours of the day and everything. It was something that, she expected and she was used to, and it wasn't necessarily... we did sometimes have people call us in the middle of the night, too. And that was like, she just dealt with it. Not everybody thinks about the fact that politicians actually are human beings who want to go out to eat with their family, or go sit and watch a play, or go to the bathroom by themselves.
Have a steak
it's almost
dinner.
like being a parent, with a little kid, except that it's adults doing this. And Pence probably understands that better than Trump does. So this is like the first time Trump's probably getting to see this, because he's probably used to being in charge of a business, telling people when they can and can't contact him, to at least to a degree. So now, on the other hand, like I said, this is behavior that social justice warriors would have had a shit fit over if somebody had done it to Biden instead. When Obama was new, instead of doing it to Pence when Trump has just been elected. But it's I think Trump overreacted to this a little bit, because it is something that, while it is rude behavior, and it's not a good venue for what they did. It doesn't get their message across, and their message is not necessarily rational, but it doesn't get their message across the way they thought it was going to. It's still not something that I would turn around and say, well, his reaction was justified. His reaction was understandable, but as a politician, it was imprudent.
You know what, though? I would say they did get their message out to a certain demographic of people.
Yeah, they virtue signaled very well.
Right. They got their message went to the people that they wanted it to go out to. They're like, yeah, woohoo! I mean, and a lot of other people, might have had a different reaction, but I think they got it to who they wanted to get it to anyway. I think those people are probably very receptive of it.
I actually have some other thoughts about this, but I want to get to do it maybe in the discussion portion. Max, did you want to? I just saw you were piping up a little bit there.
I was just going to say one very quick thing. I think this probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal if they just said at the very end of the play, we're a diverse cast, and we hope that you will take into consideration the needs of Black America or whatever. Just saying that instead of trying to insinuate that because you're Mike Pence and you're a vice president-elect under Donald Trump, that you're not going to take our needs into accounts.
Yeah.
If they just didn't do that, then I think it would have been fine. But yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I want to come back to that. Just I have a few thoughts that I've seen a lot of videos discussing this, and there are some things that I've noticed were conspicuously left out that I found more interesting. And I actually know people who know people who are in the play. So yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the next one. I'll do this one. This is Vote or Die by Mike J. Thank you, Mike. The election may be over, but the presidential race isn't truly said and done until all of the 538 members of the Electoral College cast their state's votes and elect a new commander-in-chief. Tradition holds that the electors will make their choice in accordance to their state's votes, but this election has been anything but traditional. In the past 20 years, there have only been 2 instances of college electors not voting as per the recommendation of their represented states. In the 2000 Gore versus Bush election, a college elector withheld votes from her state in protest. The second instance happened in the 2004 Kerry versus Bush election, where an elector accidentally voted for Kerry's running mate, Edwards. But with tensions running hot in an already historic election, many are suggesting these electors go against their constituents' wishes. Michael Benarian, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, one of Michigan's 16 electoral college voters, has been inundated with emails urging him to cast his vote for Hillary Clinton. These emails range from aggressively worded pleas to threats against Benarian's life if he refuses to comply. Texas elector Alex Kim has also experienced threats, stating that there are some electors who have been threatened with harm and with death. Despite the threats, Benarian and Kim remain resolute in their positions, with Kim saying there's no way he'd vote for Hillary, and with Benarian saying he is not afraid. So,
it's well known that Hitler got into power on a democratic vote, and and once he did, they immediately started plastering his head all over the insignia. And you can rest assured, if Hillary won, there will be no complaints about it, and putting her face on everything. They'd be rushing to adorn all their products with profile pictures of the first the first woman president. What would have happened if Hitler had not been elected into power? Do you suppose it might look something like America looks like right now?
it's possible. That's a good point.
I mean, the great American
actually, there
Empire,
would have
Mike,
been
is that what we're
violence.
getting at?
If Hitler had not gotten into power, there would have been violence, because there was violence before the election. He may have gotten in on a vote, but there was quite a bit of violence, and there were other things going on there. And I actually would recommend. There's a book that I think gives quite a bit of information that most people, especially in the United States, did not get in history class. And the title of it is Wilson's War. It's not like Wilson's War, the movie that came out, which I don't even know what that movie was about. I haven't seen it. But this is actually a book about Woodrow Wilson getting us involved in World War I unnecessarily, and how that led to World War II, how that led to Hitler and Stalin getting into power, how that contributed to those. So there's like I said, there's quite a bit of information there that I think has been left out of a lot of anything that Generation X and later learned in our history classes. Because it's kind of an oversimplification to say it was a democratic election and Hitler got into power. He got in by the skin of his teeth, really.
Yeah.
But Hillary, this situation, like what we're seeing right now, is the same thing that they did during the primary to the Bernie voters. We were hearing little bits and pieces about this during the primary, and how the electors were being pressured to vote for Hillary instead of Bernie during the primary. So this is not... I kind of expected this. I didn't expect it to come out that there were death threats. I didn't think they'd be that dumb, and I forgot how dumb they've been so far.
Right?
I mean, anybody's got a top 100 list of scandals published about them is pretty dumb, like pretty indiscriminate. But yeah, so this is basically a repeat of the primary, and I hope that the electors will be courageous and make their own decision and not let somebody scare them into doing something that wasn't what they were going to do anyway. And I hope that there is plenty of protection for them.
Yeah.
But this is very, like, anybody that is continuing to support Clinton with this stuff, because I haven't seen anything about her coming out and saying, no, don't do that, don't.
No.
Where's the news stories of Hillary coming out and telling her supporters, do not make death threats against these people my name.
She and Obama have been completely silent ever since the election on not only this stuff, but the actual, like, the protesting is fine, but I mean, like, the burning, the arson, and the looting, and the rioting, and the assault and stuff. They've been totally silent on that.
Yeah, if you've watched all this stuff go on, and you still support Hillary Clinton, you might want to do some self-examination.
Yeah.
There's just a little introspection there.
Well, let's move on to the next story. I just wanted to show, this. I thought this was interesting, and I guess we'll see how things go. Also, notice, this guy's Asian, and I'm pretty sure this guy's he looks a little Middle Eastern-y, maybe Hispanic to me.
Pakistani, possibly?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? And then, I don't know what that last name, but Banarian is, but, I'm just saying, these guys are voting for Trump. Okay, so, Mr. Scott. I sound like
new diagnostic tool for prostate cancer. All right, everybody. Prostate cancer researchers have identified a new diagnostic tool called liquid biopsy. Currently, a needle biopsy are used to help diagnose prostate cancer. However, this technique can lead to missed hidden tumors and does not detect cancer spread beyond the organ. Researchers have found certain biomarkers can be used to identify aggressive prostate cancers versus slow-growing and low-risk ones. By catching the aggressive prostate cancer early, doctors will be able to offer quicker and better treatments. Prostate cancer kills over 11,000 men in the UK and 26,000 men in the US each year. About 1 in 7 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer during their lifetime. The American Cancer Society recommends getting prostate screening once over the age of 40.
Yeah, I thought it was a good story because it's related to Movember, and also prostate cancer is a big deal. It's really important. Guys, get your prostate looked at. I know.
Got somebody touch your prostate.
Yes.
I liked it. I mean, what?
But apparently they might be able to do it with blood tests, which is good too.
But I want to touch my prostate.
That way they don't have to put the glove on. So.
Well, having more ways to detect is better, especially when it can differentiate between the aggressive types of cancer and the slow-growing, low-risk ones. This is something I learned about with skin cancer, because there's a type of skin cancer that runs in my family that you get when you're really, really old, and you've been in the sun a lot, that as long as it's like having a spider up in the corner of your room. If you leave it alone, it'll leave you alone, and it's all good. And if you attack it, it'll bite you, and it becomes the aggressive type. And so they spot it. They tell you it's there. They tell you don't mess with it. Don't pick it off. Don't do anything to it. And they're not going to do anything to it. And just watch to make sure it doesn't all of a sudden start growing really fast. And that's it. But if it was the aggressive type, they'd have to get rid of it. And the reason it's good for them to be able to differentiate, because a lot of times with those little slow-growing cancers, if you don't mess with them, they don't spread. But if you do mess with them, it sets them off, and all of a sudden they do become the aggressive spreading type of cancer. And then with things like this, where you actually have to go inside the body to mess with it, that presents another problem, because then you also have the risk of infection. You have all of the other risks that go with surgery. There's quite a bit of blood vessel issues in that area to deal with, and pretty much anywhere in the body. So there's always a risk of nicking or tearing something that can cause further problems that way as well. So this is something that it's really good that they found a way to help differentiate without having to start messing around with the cancer before they are able to do that.
Yeah, no, this is good. I hope. I hope that this becomes regular practice. So, but apparently there were, there are some chances of apparently hidden tumors and things like that. But, I'm glad that there's more work being done with prostate cancer. Obviously it is an underfunded disease compared to, say, breast cancer, which gets way, way, way more money. And I think that more attention being drawn to it is a good thing. So, all right, so let's move on to the next story. Whew. All right, we're going to look at Facebook now. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has a plan to fight fake news. At first, Zuckerberg responded to corporate media's blame on social media sites spreading misinformation with skepticism. Shooting back at criticisms, he wrote, quote, of all the content on Facebook. More than 99% of what people see is authentic. Only a very small amount is fake news and hoaxes. And that it makes it extremely unlikely hoaxes change the outcome of this election in one direction. And that makes it extremely unlikely that hoaxes change the outcome of the election in one direction or the other. However, Zuckerberg has not stood by his original assertion and has released a 7-point plan to deal with fake news, which includes 1. Stronger detection, technical systems to detect false news, easy reporting for users to report fake news, third-party verification through respected fact-checking organizations. Go to my fact-checkers. Next, warnings, labeling stories that have been flagged as false by third parties of our community and showing warnings when people read or share them. Additionally, raising the bar for quality of related articles in news feeds. So maybe they need to have a certain budget. They can't just be shared by random people. Disrupting fake news economics, such better ad farm detection and different ad policies. And finally, listening to journalists and others in the news industry. The fear of censorship is no stranger to people with controversial opinions and alternative news sites, and it is best summed up by a quote from the Free Thought Project. Quote, Facebook, backed by polarized public, will be the arbiter of acceptable thought.
Oh, God.
Gee, there's no way this could possibly be abused at all, is there? I mean, nothing could go wrong with this, right? It's not like social justice warriors have a habit of false flagging anything they disagree with or anything like that. Oh my God. And they're gonna do basically your job for you so you don't have a chance to do it. Everything on that list is something that people should be doing for themselves. If you are concerned that something is fake, if something looks too good to be true, or if you're not familiar with the site that it's coming from, or it makes a claim that really deserves scrutiny that you think should require a lot of proof before you believe it, like we just found life on Mars, or something like that, then it's your job, the individual's job, to fact check. You go look at other sites. You go look at fact checking sites. You go look at where else has this been reported. What proof are they offering of this? And if you think that something doesn't deserve ad money, don't share the direct link. Share the link to share the archived link. Share the Wayback link. This is so stupid. That Facebook should be the arbiter of this is so stupid.
This is worse. This is dangerous. A lot of people do rely on Facebook for a lot of their. And I know that they're you probably say, well, that's dumb. They shouldn't do that. But the fact is that a lot of people. The fact is, a lot of regular normal people spend a lot of time on Facebook because they first use it to socialize, then they use it to get information. Now they're using it to get their news because a lot of stuff does pop up. Obviously, you could see how news sites such as ATTN, Mike.com, Upworthy, Al Jazeera, BuzzFeed, they all put videos embedded into Facebook, and they get shared over and over, and a lot of it BuzzFeed started off with really, really innocuous shit like things only red-haired girls will understand, but then they started going into the world of actual political discourse. And so they dispense with the silliness, and now they're trying to be serious, but they're not. They're ideological. All these places
they didn't dispense with the silliness at all. They just merged them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Can I make 2 points?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
And I hope they're cogent points, because I think that they are. One, Facebook is not a news site. Facebook is a social media networking site.
It's true.
It's not a fucking news site. 2, Facebook is not going to do anything that doesn't make them money back. So that list of things that they're saying they're going to do, I wouldn't put a lot of weight behind it. I wouldn't put much trust in it, quite frankly. Because unless they're seeing a return on it, they're probably not going to invest any money into it. So that being said, Facebook is not a place that you should go to looking for news. It's not a news site.
No.
It is amazing to me the lack of savviness. Is that even a word?
I think
the lack of
I think our modern education
of how the
system.
internet works.
Yeah.
Have you spent much time on Facebook?
No, I don't go to
Okay.
Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account. I refuse.
When Facebook was new, I was on it a lot because I used to play Facebook games a lot. And I have a lot of, like, about half of my Facebook friends now are from those games. And so I had a rather diverse group of Facebook friends. And before Facebook started controlling whose posts that you see, and you would just see, like, whatever people posted in the order that it was posted that particular day, and you could go through your feed and see everybody's stuff, you know, unless they controlled who saw their stuff. What I noticed is if somebody agrees with what they're seeing, or if they are outraged with what they're seeing, they don't fact check it, they don't verify, they don't even look to see if it's old news before they share it. And almost every day I was reassuring one of my Facebook friends, no, this is not happening anymore, that story is from 10 years ago and this is the rest of the story. Or no, that's been debunked, there actually is no such thing as this. Or, you know, there's no February 31st, right? And it was like, sometimes it was that ridiculous. This is going to happen on February 31st. Well, then you don't have to worry about it, do you?
Right.
You know, and it's like, there's sort of a clickbait culture, I guess you could say, on Facebook, and particularly with baby boomers. Not to disparage baby boomers, but there's a lot of, like, there's a very stark divide between baby boomer nerds who were on computers when computers, you know, when you had to, like, make the punch card and put it into the big wall of computer, and you know, and baby boomer normies whose first computer was an IBM Selectric typewriter.
Right.
And they're not savvy about this kind of thing, and a lot of them never have been, and they didn't start getting on things like Facebook until they discovered it was a way to share pictures of their grandchildren.
Right. Well, see,
So,
the way I look at it too is, like, along what you're saying is that they have a very limited view of what the internet is. Like, there's like as my folks, it's like my mom's on Facebook, but she still uses AOL as her email address.
Yeah,
so they have a very curtailed, and they're not very savvy. They don't understand how the internet works exactly. And I feel like I feel like somebody needs to teach a class. They need to teach normies how to use the internet. You know, it's like those old informational videos from back in, like, the 90s where Jennifer Aniston is like, "This is the internet on Windows 95." You know, it's
oh my God.
because this is like when you're talking about this kind of stuff. Like, this is, like you were saying, you're having to, like, you know, reassure people that the things that they're seeing are not real, or are you know, have been debunked, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
well,
this, and like you said, it creates a culture. It creates this culture of, like, you know, people get incensed, or they get, you know, excited by it because it's like fear. It's like, you know, it's like, oh no, clickbait, fear, you know, and then they don't ever think any more about it from that. So
here's the other end of it. I never saw anything like that posted where somebody didn't do what I did. Either I did it, or somebody else would get to it before me. And that's the other end of social media on the internet. There's almost never something that goes around like that, where somebody doesn't come along and say, "Oh no, wait, this," you know. And you might see some argument, you might see people going, "What? That's not real," or, you know, you might see some people going, "Well, I'm still not convinced that this person is not a reprehensible person because that's been suggested about them." Mm-hmm. But I don't think for a minute that what was shared on Facebook, that the fake news on Facebook, had a bigger influence on the election than what WikiLeaks let out.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of a red herring that is being used by Zuckerberg to allow him more control, you know, like an excuse for more control. Because, like, it's his site. He can do that if he wants. And it's...
But he needs to justify it in a way.
He thinks he's going to not get criticized as much for what he's doing. But this is essentially an effort to take control over what people can see. on that site without
It's kinda like,
admitting
I'm
that
doing
it's
this for your
censorship.
own good. Is what it is. It boils down to that. It's like, I'm doing this for your own good. It's like, well, I didn't ask you to do this. No, I know what's best for you. Trust me. Just trust me. That's what
What stuff like this always reminds me of, though? And I go back to this all the time. I think it was on the Senate floor during a debate, John C. Calhoun attempted to justify the institution of slavery by likening black people to children and saying that white people needed to be responsible for them and take care of them and provide them with a place to live and make sure that in their old age. No, this was during, this was actually during the institution of slavery. So this years and years ago.
Okay,
but this was his mentality, that this was, whether he actually believes it or not, I don't know. People that say stuff like this, you always wonder if this is an excuse or if they're really that stupid. Right. But that was his line of salesmanship for this. Was that, well, we need to take care. They're like children. They can't make these decisions for themselves. They can't take care of themselves. And he compared it to life as a slave to life as a poor person with nobody to provide for you. Working in the workhouses and everything. And it was just heavy with insult to the intelligence. And there were people, of course, that bought it because they wanted to. And there were people that looked at that and were like, holy shit, that's terrible. But that same line of thinking is laced through every initiative like this.
Right.
This, you can't take care of yourself, you're not smart enough, you're not adult enough, you're not accountable enough, you're not responsible enough, you're not capable. We elites need to do this for you.
Yeah.
And what I saw on Facebook when I would start pointing people out to, look, there's this news story that debunks that news story. There's this study that I saw other people who had been just sharing clickbait like that left and right started following that lead and doing it for themselves. So they were capable. They could do it for themselves. They just had to learn the process.
Yeah. Right.
And they discovered, a lot of them discovered the process was the same on the internet that it was when they were in college and they had to go to the library and do it.
I imagine that, yeah.
Max, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just very quickly. I don't understand. Mark Zuckerberg, he's a mathematical genius. And he's also the worst PR person on the planet, because if he's saying that 99% of what people see on Facebook is authentic, that is a complete ignoring of what Sturgeon's law is, which is 90% of everything is crap, and that's rooted in the fact that bias influences the way that we report to each other, whether that's citizen journalism or typical fourth estate journalism, as it used to be. And the way that it's shared around and the way that people are a lot more prone to their biases on social media, it's only bound to manipulate the raw data into how people perceive of it themselves. So how can he possibly say that with a straight face to the people on his social media website when you see these stories going back and forth about people saying only 35% of people trust the media, whereas it goes as low as 6% if you look at RT, for example. It just makes no sense. And I'm not prone to conspiracy theories, but the way that this story was presented to us, it really does seem like he's just trying to take control for our own good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Max, you know what it is, right? It's about metrics. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Do you know what metrics are? No, yeah. I mean, not like measuring, but like metrics, like visibility. Basically, what this is Zuckerberg coming out and making an affirmative statement and taking control. It's like, oh, Zuckerberg's in control. He knows what's going on. He's taking care of this. He's laid out a 7-point plan. He's ready to go. He's being proactive. That's all this is. This is metrics. This is all about branding. This is all about appearances, because no matter what's really happening, you have to put up an appearance that you're in control, that you have the situation, firmly in hand, and nothing's wrong, and everything's going to be okay. Because the stock prices, if people fucking get a little jittery, their stock is going to be in the shitter, and they're going to get fucked and lose a ton of money. Yeah. So that's what this is. This is metrics. That's all this is, plain and simple.
Yep.
I'd like to point out why I think Mark Zuckerberg's 7-point plan potentially sets a very dangerous precedent. Aside from all the stuff that you guys have already said about him, essentially, or his team, controlling or attempting to control what news people consume. First, let's look and see why this is a problem, because as Scott pointed out, people shouldn't really be getting their news on Facebook because it's a social media site. But the problem is that I think a lot of people do. I think that Facebook is still the largest social media site on the internet. It like Google Plus cannot compete. It tried. It just has too many. It sucks too hard, basically. But you know, it just is not there. And there's nothing that's caught up to Facebook yet. I mean, you would need something that would essentially overtake it in the same way that it overtook MySpace back in the day. But the way that Facebook works now is that you have people who get up in the morning and the first thing they do is they go to Facebook. And then what do they go there for? They want to see what their friends are doing, but they also want to see what's going on in the world. I mean, I use it for that myself. I'm in several groups, so when I want to find out what's the newest, happenings are, I'll go to the Honey Badger Radio Facebook page where people will share articles. I'll go to the Gamergate page. I'll go to Social Justice Warriors, which is the one that Max admins, and I just look to see what's going on, right? And lots of other ones. And I'm, usually really critical about what I'm going to take as a real story and what's probably bullshit. It's pretty obvious, but I think that a lot of people don't, especially if what they see already lines up with their worldview. So if they already have a predisposition to agree with whatever they're about to be exposed to, then it's actually they're more prone to just taking it at face value, and more than that, sharing it with other people and hoping that so it spreads, right? Everybody wants to go viral on Facebook too. So you do have cases where there is a lot of bullshit news. There is. But the problem is that Mark Zuckerberg's not planning on taking those places down, because those are all the places that I already listed. That's Al Jazeera Plus, that's BuzzFeed, that's Mike.com, ATTN, Upworthy, Huffington Post videos, and all these other things, They are sharing feminist myths, social justice myths, Black Lives Matter myths, Islam myths, all kinds of bullshit. And those could easily be debunked as false, but those are not going to be the ones that get taken down. They're going to be the little, I'm guessing, and this is my prediction, they will be the places that disagree with the worldview that Mark Zuckerberg believes most people have based on his view that his perspective, and remember, his site was also the one that was blocking people when they wrote the word tranny or faggot. So, you would get blocked from Facebook for writing it, even if it was in a PM. I was actually having a private conversation using the instant messenger feature, and I was talking to Blair White, and I used the word tranny, and I got taken off. With Blair White, who, by the way, is a transsexual.
Ooh, you talked to Blair White, Brian? Oh, my.
Well, I'm just saying, I was talking to her at the time. And
I'm just joking.
Okay.
I'm joking.
My point is this.
I'm taking a piss.
My point is this. Facebook does have a political side. It has a bias. It's inherent in the company itself. Remember the female, she is another CEO? She was the one that talked about ban bossy. They do have a political viewpoint, and they're going to use that. I think that people they're probably going to try and block off. Milo started making these videos that are very similar in the format as ATTN and Mike.com and Al Jazeera, where they take these, they take these very complex political things and they boil them down to a tiny 30-second thing, where they just use it to push their worldview, and they use clips taken out of context and animated GIFs over music and all kinds of dumb shit. Basically, they deliver the message as dumb a way as possible, and they spoon feed it to people. Yeah, it's propaganda, and they spoon feed it to people, and people just they just take it at face value, and then they repeat. And this is how I wouldn't say it's entirely it. It's probably a small part of it, but I think that a large number of people, if not the majority, get their news from social media sites as Facebook. As sad as that is, I think that's where a lot of it is. And then only a few people actually go and try to affirm that, get the truth from it. Most of them just take it. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, if Mark Zuckerberg is bad at PR, then someone's holding his hand. Someone in a very high place is holding his hand. There's a meme that says it best. It's got a picture of Julian Assange saying, "I give private information on corporations to you for free, and I'm the villain." And then it's got a picture of Mark Zuckerberg saying, "I give your private information to corporations for money, and I'm man of the year." Which says it all. I can imagine the bizarre universe not far from here, where people go to WikiLeaks in the morning for their gossip, and Facebook is actually doing news and shit.
Yeah.
There's a couple of ways to combat this, and I'm not saying this is something you can take down, that Facebook would reform or go away or anything like that. But to deal with this shit in your own way, within your own sort of circles on Facebook and everything, you have to be the vigilant one in your group, and you'll find yourself teaching other people among your connections to do the same thing. And that's really, it's going to be a grassroots thing, and it's not just Facebook. This is everywhere, all over. This is happening in different ways, where elites are trying to, or elitists are trying to use control of the flow of information to manipulate public opinion. And I mean, that's an age-old thing. It's been done in politics forever. As long as there's been politics, there's been elitists trying to use control of the flow of information to influence how people make up their minds, or to make people's minds up for them. So what you can do is be the person with the information that isn't being shared otherwise. Be the person who knows how to use different information on logic. Be the person that teaches your friends and family what logic fallacies are, and the names of those fallacies, and why they're aspects of fallacious reasoning. And that's the first thing. The second thing is to always make sure that places like this have competition. So join minds, even if you're not going to be on it as much as you're on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else you are. Look at the various God, I can't think of that. The GNU social network list, which I had the link in my bookmarks on my bookmarks bar, and it seems to have been pushed off by other links. Okay, here it is. It's social.guhnoo.org, and look and see which of those various networks fits the type of usage that you would want to do, and use them. Encourage other people to do that as well. And that's the only way to deal with stuff like this. Foster competition so that they're not able to bottleneck people and actually control the flow of information, and be the person who makes sure other people around you understand how to evaluate things, and how to eliminate ridiculousness, how to eliminate irrational assessment, and how to eliminate fake news themselves.
Yeah. Teach them how to throw back fish that they get, teach a man how to fish, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, teach them how to throw back the sick ones.
That's right.
You know what? I believe the children are the future. We got to teach them well and let them lead the way.
Show them all the beauty that they possess inside.
You know what? I was just getting ready to say that, Brian. Thank you.
All right. So let's move on to the next story before we break into song.
You guys don't want me to break into song right now.
I'm
just telling you. Your voice is a wind instrument. My wind is totally foobar right now.
Okay,
I got more at the other end than I do where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Scott, my man. Last story.
Yes, sir. The fire department of the city of New York forbids firefighters from hanging pictures of Trump. The fire department of the city of New York has prohibited firefighters from hanging pictures of President-elect Donald Trump in their firehouses or trucks. The memo instructing departments to remain out of the political scene apparently came out after a fire truck in Brooklyn had been driving around with a Trump mask on its grill. The new policy contradicts the first department of New York's own past actions, as pictures of George Bush and Barack Obama were on display in firehouses. An upset anonymous firefighter told the New York Post, "The firehouse is supposed to be a symbol of America. That's hard to believe when you can't post a picture of the president."
Yeah.
See, this is bad because, like, our firehouses are now in such bad shape that it's snowing inside the firehouses. The special snowflakes are falling into the firehouses. That is a state of disrepair that cannot be tolerated. These guys need a better environment.
Yeah. What? This is stupid.
Yeah.
This is New York. Go home. You're drunk. This is crazy.
Was this the same fire department that was the first to hire a woman on purely sort of
Yes.
gender grounds? Yeah.
Yes, the woman who failed the test 11 times, so they made the test easier so she could pass it, so they could say they had a woman on the force. Yes, this is the same department. And then, if I remember right,
but
she
it's one
hurt her
mistake after
ankle.
another.
Yeah, if I remember right, she hurt her ankle and then went on workers' comp.
Mike?
Really?
Yeah, I'm not saying they're connected politically in any way, but it's one mistake after another. New York Fire Department. Maybe some partisan politics is getting in your way there.
Are these also the same firefighters that were digging bodies out of the rubble of the Twin Towers when they collapsed? I would think yes. Can you guys just let them have their mask? I mean, really, this is just ridiculous. This is retarded.
Yeah, clearly the firefighters are awesome, but the administration are a bunch of dumb shits.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like they're bowing and scraping on points that are fucking, like, they're non-issues. I mean, who cares if they fucking hang a picture? Oh,
There
God,
were people's
I don't
heads
think- why is
exploding
this
as
even a
they
thing?
maybe because people were literally shaking as the fire trucks drove by because they saw the mask.
Here's the thing about this. Here's the thing about this. If I can make a very quick point,
Literally
is
shaking,
that
you guys.
I'm definitely literally shaking right now. But when we look at our police departments and our fire departments across the United States, not just New York, we're talking about systems where these people are paid very little to do two of the hardest fucking jobs there are, hands down. I mean, aside from being a soldier in another country. I mean, these are horribly stressful and dangerous jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not being paid enough. They're not being supported the way they should be. These people should be among the highest paid people in any profession. I mean, for the shit that they have to do, I mean, come the fuck on now. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And now they're going to start fucking like picking away at them about a picture hanging up. Man, get the fuck out of here with this shit. God, our fucking world is becoming such a fucking a daycare center.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, you gotta make sure everybody's happy. You don't want to make anybody
People
sad.
see the face, it hurts their feelings. They could literally put like Mike
come
Myers'
on,
mask on the front of that, and it would be less offensive.
Seriously.
The firefighters do a lot of sort of carrying women out of buildings, and we don't want firefighters getting any ideas from Donald Trump as to what parts of the body we should grab in order to do that. I mean, I'm saying that as a joke, but I have to wonder if it came up.
You know what? Just for the record, if any firefighters are listening, if my apartment is on fire and you have to get me out of there, I don't care what you grab. I just care about getting out of the building.
Hannah is giving enthusiastic consent. Confirmed.
Yes, if my apartment's ever on fire and I can't get out by myself, and you come in to get me, just get me out.
Don't firefighters
don't
also get cats out of trees? They have to grab those pussies. Yeah. So.
In fact, there was a news story not too long ago about a firefighter who did not have the cat's enthusiastic consent to rescue the cat from the tree. Some idiot called because the cat was refusing to come down, not stuck. Right? The cat liked being up there, and they still had a firefighter go up and try to rescue the cat. The firefighter ended up getting hurt, which like it's clear that obviously the firefighter had quite a bit of compassion, was caring enough to come and want to help and everything. But it was just kind of a ridiculous story because, here's this actual firefighter rescuing a cat from a tree story, and the cat did not want to be rescued.
Right. The cat was like biting the shit out of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, actually the cat was so squirrely, that the firefighter's movements caused the firefighter to fall.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've heard about
this
them
was like,
bitten to shit by cats. Like,
yeah, and they will bite the shit out of you if they're scared and you reach for them.
For sure.
They're animals,
Yeah,
and
they do that.
That's like their instinct. That's their fight instinct. Cats can really wreck you if they get scared. You'd be surprised what a little animal like that can do.
Dude, those little teeth are like fucking daggers. They're razors.
Well, it's the claws that are like, because the claws, especially the front claws, will hit you from every direction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm getting confirmation in the chat here from Florida Catfish. The firefighter, the female firefighter, applied for disability right after she passed the reduced test. And I want to compare that to 9/11. Yeah, the news that came out after 9/11, the thing that with respect to the firefighters that hit me the hardest, and I say this about courage on a regular basis, that courage is not, it's not being unafraid. It's doing what needs to be done despite being scared shitless. Despite being terrified. You still do it. That's courage. And a great example of that was the news story, one of the news stories that came out after 9/11 of the firefighters who wrote their social security numbers on their bodies before they went in to rescue people or to find bodies after the towers fell. They knew that there was a significant chance that they were going to end up being more bodies in there, that they were going to die. And they wrote their social security numbers on themselves so that they could be identified if they died. And they went in, knowing that. And you know that they were scared. You don't face something like that unafraid. Courage is walking in there with your social security number written on your arm so that you can be identified if it falls on you while you're trying to get those bodies out. That's heroics. And to have somebody turn around and say, you can't display this picture because I'm afraid of it, to somebody who was that courageous, it's kind of sickening.
Yeah.
It's not just stupid. It's not just shitty. It's actually nauseating to think about somebody turning around and telling somebody like that, I just can't handle this image that I could look away from and that isn't doing anything to me. Because, I'm afraid. It's bullshit.
Yeah. Hey, to lighten to lighten the mood up, why do people love firefighters but hate cops? Even though they both kind of,
because firefighters don't carry guns and shoot people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they have axes and shit though, and fire hoses are no fun. But I think the reason is mainly because when a firefighter shows up to your door, that means you're being rescued. But when a cop shows up to your door, that means you're under arrest. So
yeah, there's a lot of different connotations there with the cop.
When a cop is at your door, it means that you're probably in some kind of trouble. And when a firefighter is in your door, that means you're in trouble, but he's there to get you out.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Well, it's that people love the police when they want the police to have to be their advocate against somebody else, though.
Yeah.
And this is when, you'll see more women that love the police than you will men for that reason, because women are more likely to get the police on their side in a conflict if there's a conflict between a woman and a man.
I thought that women liked firefighters more than policemen because they tend to be very athletic. I mean, like whenever you go to like a male stripper place, you usually see more. I'm not speaking from experience. I'm just saying.
Well, no, there are cop strippers too.
They play at both.
Yeah, they do both.
There are cop strippers. There are cop themed strippers. There are firefighter themed strippers. There are numerous themes there.
I'm just speaking in terms of proportion.
No, I was just gonna say, Max, I've seen some bestial ass cops here in Chicago. I guess you have to be though, right? But
Well,
I've seen.
I don't know. I
some
mean, like some
BCLS
police
cops.
force.
Wait, you mean in Chirac?
Yeah, I've seen some
Some
cops with
police
some
forces
gains.
don't mandate. Most.
bro.
Go ahead, Max.
Some police forces don't mandate that you need to be in shape to be a part of the force, right? Whereas when you're a firefighter, you always have to make sure that you're in the peak physical shape that a human being can be in, right? Which will in turn lead to the fawning by the fairer sex. You know, that's all I was saying.
Yeah,
And that you go to strip clubs with men in them often.
no, I hear that. I know
Hey
some.
man, I wasn't making the allegations that you enjoy fingers up your butthole before.
I know
Hey,
some
ain't
pretty
nothing wrong
old.
with that, buddy.
I know
Just
some
saying.
pretty
No,
old
the rest of the
firefighters though. That, I know some pretty old firefighters that they're not retired and they still do their thing, but they just can't. You know, they're not at their peak anymore because they're like in their 50s and shit. But they're so experienced that they're still valuable. And but yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I think that we often associate firefighters with like, you know, really cut dudes because they have to like do all this physically intensive shit, and we don't. It's not as obvious with police because they're usually wearing bulletproof vests and whatnot. And we also have like this. I don't know. It's kind of a stereotype of like the donut shop policeman that's overweight and, you know, can't catch a criminal or whatever. But that's, at least in my experience, that's not really that common most of the time. Especially,
Well, you'd
again,
be surprised about the can't catch a criminal cop because they actually being overweight doesn't necessarily mean a person cannot run fast.
right.
And I have seen some fellas that are a little bigger around the middle that, you know, they have that spare tire. I've seen them break into action in a situation where you know, things happen without warning and they can really move.
Yeah.
And you definitely do not want to be on the receiving end if they have to restrain somebody or they, you know, that they have to subdue somebody because they're just as capable. It all depends on whether it's, they have strength and agility tests that they have to pass to be on the force. They have to perform. So, and they don't get the pussy pass just because they have a different body shape. They don't get the girl test. They still have to do everything that the other guys have to do. And if they can't be on the beat.
You know what the problem is, though? Is in a lot of places, because of low recruitment, they've had to lower those standards. So that's not always the case now.
Yeah, well, who wants to be a cop in a situation where you've got, you know, thousands of people marching down the street yelling, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Right now."
Right.
Well, being a policeman is a very
I've watched
thankless
them.
position, I think.
And like I've been on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to the police coming to your house. Our van got stolen several years ago and used in a crime, and they showed up with, you know, this idea that they were going to interrogate my husband because it was in his name. And, you know, we live in a suburb of Dayton, not Dayton proper. So it was stolen in the suburbs and it was used in Dayton proper. So we had two municipalities of cops show up. Dayton had to have our suburbs police accompany them to come to our apartment. And because the suburbs police, our municipal police, were there, you know, my husband didn't get taken away and put in jail because his van was used to commit a crime. And it was a stupid thing too. It was a stolen VCR. Like, it was, when I finally went down with the police report to the Dayton Municipal Police Department, I was like, I can't believe you guys were this. They showed up at 1:30 in the morning. We're this vehement over something like that when I'm reading about murders in Dayton proper. And he's like, well, it was a $250 VCR. And I'm going, what did it do? Make you a beer and a sandwich when you're watching the movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, that was one end of it. The other end of it, I used to drive up I-75 to work every day. You know, I went from my little community that I grew up in to Lima. And so I was along I-75. I had gotten off the highway to get fuel. I got back on the highway, and a vehicle that had been way far back, comes right up behind me. I sped up to the speed limit. They were speeding. They came up behind me. The driver got mad that I didn't start speeding up because he came up behind me. So the next time I got off the highway to go to my workplace, he got out of his vehicle, came around to my driver's side window, and punched out my window, which takes 50 pounds of pressure. And it scared the crap out of me. And he'd had his wife was in the car. He had her call the cops and say that I had cut them off and slammed on the brakes. And so the cops showed up. And needless to say, because the guy had been violent, I was on the receiving end of protection at that point. And I had this crazy person standing in front of me, acting nuts. I put the car between me and this guy because I didn't know what he was going to do. And I cannot tell you how much of a relief it was to see the police car come up. I wouldn't even have cared if I'd have gotten a ticket. If they'd have believed the guy and said, well, we're going to ticket you for whatever, violation that would be, I'd have gladly accepted that as long as the cop was there and that guy couldn't do anything to me. Because he was a lot bigger than I was, and he was strong enough to punch out the window of my car. So it was like there are times when you're happy to see the police, and there are times when you're not happy to see the police. And your attitude towards the police differs very much depending on whether or not you're glad to see them at that moment. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the same people who are calling for just indiscriminate sanctions against the police wouldn't like it very much if there were no cops there when they had to deal with a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's like you said, they don't like the police until they need them. Then all of a sudden it's like, they're the shit.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's no corruption or that the need for police is a reason to tolerate corruption. What I'm saying is the fact that there's corruption is not a reason to demonize all police.
Mm-hmm.
It's we deal with the corruption, and it's just like anything else. You get cancer, you don't kill yourself because you have cancer and cancer is bad. You get rid of the cancer. You deal with the corruption. You don't get rid of a protective force. You don't eliminate the position of peace officer.
I think we got a little bit off the plot. Weren't we talking about firemen?
Yeah, we were just finishing up the fireman story, but yes, we did get a little bit off topic because it was my fault.
It was my fault, though, because here we are, like these guys. We were talking about the fact that here we are. This is a heroic thing.
Right.
Being a fireman is a heroic thing. You have to have courage to do that job, and maybe not everybody agrees with every fireman's political opinion. And it wouldn't be okay for firemen to say, well, if you're a Hillary supporter, I'm not going to rescue you. But it's also not okay to say, if you're a fireman, you can't have political opinions, and you can't support your president.
Especially when it was okay for you to do it last term and the term before that. And the term before that.
And especially considering, if this sort of relates to why firemen are more popular than the police. Because the police sometimes have the right enemies and sometimes they are the bad guys. But firemen fight against the elements. Unless you're a person made of fire, you're unlikely to have a problem with fire. So in a way, it doesn't matter whatsoever what their political opinion is, because fire doesn't have a political leaning. It's much the same with Coast Guards. And why isn't the Coast Guards considered as sexy as fucking firefighters?
I think they are too. I think that you get
because they have a version that sits on the beach wearing Speedos, that's why.
Yeah.
Well, it's because not everybody lives by the coast.
That's true.
Well, there you go. There's firemen everywhere.
Yeah, there's fire all over the country, but
there you go.
There's only the Coast Guard by the coast.
So unless
we're
you're
getting to the belly of the issues here.
Unless you're the Human Torch, you don't have anything to worry about.
Right? Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
I'm hot-blooded, and I got a fever of 103.
Do you? Okay. You probably should get off the show and go to a hospital, Max.
It's not jaundice. I have it on good authority. It's not jaundice.
It's 103 is not that bad. I've survived 107. So,
Dear God. Okay, so that's it for the stories. The Jennifer Lawrence one is for the after show, which we'll be recording. If you guys want to check that out, become a patron to join them, or you can also become a patron to watch the recorded shows, which I promise will be set to private from now on, Allison. So please stop bothering me. So let's come back to talking about the extended versions, or the discussion portion. We did kind of discuss a lot of the topics already, but I want to go back to Hamilton for a second. Now I know that this, in the large scheme of things, this is a non-story. Really, it is. But the media, the reason why I put it in here is mainly because the media and a lot of people have been making it into a much, much, much larger story than it should be. CNN would not drop it, no matter what. When they were interviewing this one woman who was trying to talk about all of the major things that had been happening, and he wanted to focus on this Hamilton thing. But here's the thing I want to point out that no one else had. There was two things that I was thinking about while this was going on. First of all, as someone who knows, I used to work in theater, and I know a lot of people involved with doing the plays at the theater that I worked at, as well as some people that they know. And one of the things that no one had noticed that I thought was worth pointing out is when they were about to make that speech, which for some reason the guy had to pull out a piece of paper, like he had to write it down, even though it was really obvious, virtue signaling crap. They asked that everybody use their phones to tweet and record video and all that because they wanted to share this message far and wide. Now, normally in the theater, you're not supposed to use your phones, right? That's verboten. But the show was over, so I guess at this point it would have been okay. However, in my opinion, what they wanted to do, aside from, obviously they wanted a virtual signal, and obviously they wanted everyone to see that they were doing it, but they also wanted to promote their play. Even though it was doing really well, and yes, it's very popular, even despite the fact that if you take out the twist, which is the fact that the entire cast is minorities and women, it's very mediocre. When you take all that out, there's not much left. Basically, it's a diversity play that doesn't have a lot of substance to it. And that's just, from the people who I know who are in theater that saw it, that would normally be in support of the politics that they support, had said, well, if you take the fact that they're casting minorities and women, it's not really that great. It's okay. So it's really made a big deal partly because of that. But I think that this was shameless self-promotion because now it's on everybody's tongue. Everybody's talking about Hamilton now. And the reason is because of this.
Before, though? Because, if I'm not mistaken, it's sold out through 2000.
It is sold. Yes, it is. But the thing is, this is the thing you got to understand, that when you sell out a theater, first of all, the venue that they have isn't that big. So it's not a huge deal. And it was only sold out in... it's not sold out everywhere because the Hamilton play is being, it's being produced in multiple parts of the country, but it is sold out in New York. But New York is a big Broadway city, so that means that there's a lot of people who really like to go to plays. However, when you look at the larger context of how many people actually like to go to plays, especially musicals, it's not that many people. It's actually an aging population. And I'm saying this from experience as somebody who worked in musical theater at the front of the house. Most of the people, no matter what plays they did, they came up with new ones. They did classic ones. A lot of what you get, a lot of older people, that are like seniors or people who are very much involved with the sort of live drama musical theater community. So they're either actors themselves or they're aspiring or they're writers.
They're in that ecosystem.
They're involved. Yeah, they're part of the ecosystem, exactly as you put it. So that means that they're just going to go see the stuff because they already have an interest in it. But it's not like it has a big mainstream appeal. The only ones that do tend to be the ones that are more interesting for a much broader audience. Example, the most successful play we ever did was Avenue Q. Now, Avenue Q is a parody of Sesame Street. It's adult, and it was done by the same guys who did Book of Mormon. So it's extremely naughty, foul language, and all that. But it's also got a great appeal to younger people and people who they're mainly going because they know about the Trey Parker Matt Stone thing, right? They're the guys who did the Book of Mormon. So that's the one with the song "The Internet is for Porn." Exactly. That was our biggest hit with people who don't go to theater. See, that's the important thing. They don't go to theater, which is most people. Once that was over, we couldn't get them back, no matter what we did. And it was mainly because they didn't have an interest in musical theater. They just had an interest in Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the stuff that they had done, or the folks that did Book of Mormon. So what I'm saying is that despite the fact that this thing is sold out, it's sold out mainly to an audience that doesn't actually have an interest in that has a specific kind of interest in musical theater. So I think, for one, this is meant as a shameless self-promotion to get more people to go see Hamilton that otherwise wouldn't, because they're just like, well, that
You
just
know what they say?
And I would, that's what I would bet money on that. Okay.
Right.
The other thing is this.
I mean, you know what they say? No publicity is bad publicity.
Exactly.
So.
And I mean, this looks good because, when you think about the people who are getting their news from Facebook and from mainstream media, this makes Mike Pence, the guy who went to see it, a very juicy target of the kind of virtue signaling that they sort of expose him to. Now, I am, as Mike pointed out earlier, I am extremely happy to live in a country that allows them to do that, and I would not have that any other way. So I'm not going to say they shouldn't do it or they can't do it or whatever. Would I say that it's like the smartest move? Like, if they were to ask my opinion, I would say no, I wouldn't have gone about it that way. But that doesn't mean that I don't want them to do it. And I think that that's another thing that I think gets lost when we're talking about things like censorship. And these kind of discussions, is whether or not there's room to understand the difference between somebody telling you can't do something and enforcing it, and somebody saying it's probably not a good idea, or I think it's rude, or I don't recommend it. But they're not forcing anything. They're just giving their opinion. And I think there's an important distinction between those two things. And I say that because I think that Trump's reaction. Well, there were two reactions, right? There was the Pence reaction, which was, very political. He did the political speak, and he said, look, it's great to live in a country that you can do this, yada, yada. People say that was really classy. I said, well, yeah, that was the right thing to say, but then he's a professional politician. Of course he knows what the right thing to say is.
Yeah, that was the diplomatic fence sitting
that was the
side.
Exactly. That was the whole, like, maybe that wasn't the right venue, but I don't disagree with what they said, blah, 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 like in terms of their right to say it. Of course, but this is what he does. He's smooth. He can do that. But politicians are good at doing that. Trump is not a politician. No, he never made the claim, and he has a tendency to react. Now, on the one hand, it's possible that when he talked about how the theater is supposed to be a special and safe place or something like that, and that they were being rude, many people might say, well, he's talking about safe spaces. But I would argue that he probably doesn't even know about that, and that there's a word association thing that's happening that probably isn't entirely accurate. Another possibility is that he could be trolling, and I'm not saying that. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt either way. But I'm just saying to consider, if he's using the safe space argument, and then people are denouncing it and saying, well, no, the safe space argument doesn't apply, then he's actually making an argument against safe spaces. He has done this before when he brought up, I think it was black on black crime statistics. And this was back when he was still running, right? And he threw a black-on-black crime stat that was wrong. It was a little bit too high or something like that, right? And then, like, some other person came out and they saw it as a gotcha moment, which is, this is what our discourse has come down to, is people trying to catch other people in things, and then they try to expose them. And then it's like, it's like throwing down the fucking, the I don't know, like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card or whatever. And that's how they treat it, right? And then, so they did that, and they said, no, the actual stats are this. And he was like, okay. But the thing is, when they put the actual stats out, they actually still proved him right about black-on-black crime being a huge problem. The only thing that happened is that he overinflated it a little, and then when the mainstream media came in to correct him because they were more interested in making him look bad, they ended up proving him right because they actually put out the correct stats. And so you have to ask yourself, was that on purpose or not? And I don't think it's like crazy to think that it might be, but and I would think that that's possible. Now, I'm not saying that it's true because I have no idea. So that was the thing I wanted to say about the reaction. And then the last thing, because I know Hannah's like chomping at the bit. Last thing I want to say is this, and I think this is the one that most people missed, okay? The assumption here, for some reason, coming from the cast at Hamilton, is that Mike Pence is some kind of racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic bigot that is like basically in the presidency, right? There have been people talking about how he like is for electroshock therapy to take the gay away and all this other stuff, and there have been some places that have said that that's bullshit, or maybe it's over exaggerated or whatever. Maybe he really believes it. Doesn't matter. He's vice president. That stuff's not going to happen because the culture of our country is not going to allow it. So that's not going to happen anyway. But here's the thing that a lot of people seem to overlook. If he is that terrible of a person, Why did he spend $200 to go see a play that is mostly staffed by minorities and women, no white people at all, and it's about it's about American history? He knows what the politics is of the people involved. You know that like the actual Broadway scene is dominated by gays. It just is. This is just the fact, okay? And he still went despite all that. He gave them his money. Why would he do that if he felt this way? Okay, go ahead.
May I?
Yes.
I'll be real quick, Mike, so you can get in there. First, I sincerely doubt he paid for it. They probably sent him, hey, please come see our thing, and it's. And
well, then why would he go?
Metrics. Metrics. Same thing I was talking about before. It's about appearances. It's like, oh, no. All the things you've known about Mike Pence since the early 90s when he came into the political scene and the shitty things that he's been saying for the last 2.5 decades, all that's gone now because he went to see Hamilton. See, he's very accepting of the gays. He loves the gays. He loves the theater. He's Mike Pence. He's your new vice president.
Except that it wasn't his camp that publicized that he was there.
Yeah.
And didn't he say, like in a CNN interview, like the next day, saying that he didn't find the comments that were made by the cast that offensive?
No, he didn't. He said that.
He actually was very diplomatic.
Yeah. Which
he didn't find the situation that offensive. But this is something, like I said before, civil servants are accustomed to this because people do it to them all the time. Trump, being a business owner, is not accustomed to this in the same way because he has had some degree of boundaries that people don't recognize those same boundaries when they're dealing with because he's now gone from being the employer to an employee. There's a degree, even though people don't always recognize it, there's a degree to which we all recognize that civil servants are our employees, and they are there to take on our concerns. And so people have no compunctions about throwing those concerns at any point in time. And like I said, it's the personification of that comic that some anti-Gamergate, I can't remember who originated that comic, came out with for sea lining. So Trump's going to screw up on stuff like this, and he's going to have there'll be other faux pas like this. He's going to have a learning curve, and he definitely overreacted to this. This was not that big of a deal. And he, whether it was trolling or whether if he was serious, then yeah, this was an overreaction. This is us seeing that areas where they, Hillary Clinton said that Trump is not experienced. This is us seeing that lack of experience. Mm-hmm. Now, is that a reason why he shouldn't have been elected? I don't think so, because it's not a form of corruption. It is a learning curve. It is something that he's going to have to develop. But we're going to see more of this, and we're going to see a lot of nitpicking.
I understand.
Because nitpicking is really all they're going to be able to do. We're going to see... we've already seen, the thing with Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, during his tenure, he desegregated schools. He actually got the death penalty for a leader in the KKK, and they are calling him racist because somebody accused him one time of saying racist things in private without proof, and it's what kept him from getting I think it was a federal judge position years ago, but this is what we're going to see. This is the same as back when Reagan was president. He was accused of all kinds of things. He's going to make everybody homeless. He's going to cause a nuclear war. He's going to make your grandparents so poor that they're going to eat cat food. And even today, there's a narrative from the left on Reagan and AIDS that is actually false. That I've had a lot of people throw that narrative at me, and I've had to refer. There's a a Media Research Center article that debunks it, and I've had to refer a lot of people to that article. We're going to see the same thing with Trump, because the media does not like him, and that is what's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
So they're going to blow things like this out of proportion, and they're going to blow things like he overreacted, but it's not that big of a deal that he overreacted.
Well, and Hannah, to be fair though, it's not like they're just gonna like seek these things out or create them. Trump has got a history of a decades-long history of being a shithead. So it's like it's there. It's very well documented. So it's not like they have to really try.
No, but he will have moments like this where, you know,
for sure, because he's not
like
savvy to the situation.
What he did here.
Yeah,
this was a faux pas.
But the question is, though, with
Hitler moment.
Yeah, the question
but
is, though, will
faux pas like their Hitler moments?
yeah,
because that's all
treat
they've got.
everything like that. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's the climate we're in right now. Everything is you're literally Hitler. You know, it's just like, oh.
Well, that's the thing, though. The media will likely, because they don't like him, and they're gonna come after him for everything he does. They're going to create a climate in which the little mistakes he made. I'm just as a hypothetical. Let's say he does a lot of great things in policy, and you know, a lot of the great economic strides and all the stuff that and that are important. And then there's all the little shit that he, where he overreacts on Twitter, or he gets emotional because he's pretty thin-skinned, right? And he does stuff. The media will focus on the little stuff, and not just the media. The entertainment industry is going to do it. Late shows are going to make fun of him. Stand-up comedians are going to do it, and all of the stuff that he's done that's good, that he may do, that is actually effective and helps. They're going to ignore that. They're going to focus on the little thing that he did over here that was offensive. If let's just say, if that is how things go. I don't know how it's going to go. This is totally a wild card here. But I'm just saying that the way the media tends to work is, despite the good you might do, if you are a target, they will ignore that and only focus on the mistakes that you make. Because the idea is to make you look like a buffoon, even if you have some capacity to do it yourself, but ignore any of the good things that you might do along the way.
Well, it's like the saying, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's no level of good that he can do that will avail him of the perceived or actual bad shit that he's done. I mean, I'm not saying this is like, it's like, I think he shouldn't be held accountable for the bad stuff that he does, but if he does do good, then give the man his due.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just saying, give him credit where it's due, and then also hold him accountable when he fucks up. That's it. Exactly. One thing I will also say, when it comes to the media, I don't know if you guys know, but I heard that Trump is going to be he's going to be cutting the middleman out, which is the media, when it comes to him delivering his messages. He's actually going to be using things like Periscope and Facebook Live and stuff to talk directly to people and do it live when he is president. This is something that he is supposedly worked out with with Periscope and stuff. So I think this is actually going to be really interesting, because when you think about it, okay, when we had George Bush as president, social media was not very prominent. I mean, some people using it, but
fledgling.
It was just coming out, and he didn't use it because I mean, why would he? Like, a lot of people in Washington didn't even think that was viable, and George Bush Jr. It likely wasn't on his mind. And then when Obama became president, and he did it for 8 years, he actually started to use the internet. He started to do addresses on YouTube and on Facebook occasionally. But he didn't use it a whole lot. He just did that. Like, he would make the occasional address. I think that as we are firmly embedded in the digital age, most people, this particular term will be really interesting, because it's probably going to be the first time in a while, if he takes advantage of the technology, that our president Trump will be able to talk directly to people. And he probably will use it, because he does use Twitter a lot. And, there are people who are saying they should get his Twitter taken away from him. I say no, because hilarious shit comes out of there, whether it makes him look dumb or he's making other people look dumb. But I think that his desire to use it, and I'd like to see him do other stuff, will make for a very entertaining 4 years, if that's fair, at the very least. And I'd like to see what's that like, having a president that uses social media. I don't think Trudeau uses social media that much. So that's something that I'm kind of interested in.
No, there's a precedent for this as well. I mean, there's a pretty long precedent for this. And it's the government hasn't really kept up necessarily as well as it should have with technology. But if you look back in history, well, our fireside chats, the name fireside chat actually comes from President Roosevelt's fireside chats. That he did a series between like 1933 and 1944 where he had these radio conversations, which you say conversations, he's really talking on the radio and the folks were listening. And it was inviting the president into your home to listen to him speak on the radio. And this is the use of technology to get directly into discussion with the people, to get your message directly across to the people.
Yeah, it's like
without having the media twist it and spin it.
Right.
That was very smart. That was a brilliant thing to do.
Exactly.
And it's not the first thing. I mean, before there was radio, before there was the presidents and other leaders would speak in public a lot more. That they would show up in public and actually make speeches where people would hear what they had to say with larger crowds and so on than they do now. So this is, you get that, you got, as television came on, you saw
Kennedy.
presidents making direct messages to the public on television
Yeah.
instead of having, the media report on what they had to say. So this is a next step, and it's good to see Trump taking it.
Yeah, I believe that it was FDR that took advantage of radio and John F. Kennedy that took advantage of television.
Television, yep.
And so, this is, I think this is just the way, if we're going to get the message from the president, I think the best way to do it is get it directly from them, because, look, if Trump turns out to be a shithead president, I want it to come out of his mouth. I don't want it to come through a third party that already has an interest in making him look like that. I'd rather he does it right in front of me. Yeah, because if it goes through their filtering system, I'm sorry, but I'm beyond distrustful of the media at this point. After everything that's happened, you get
a lot of people that say, well, I look at what the left-wing media has to say, and then I look at what the right-wing media has to say, and that gives me the whole story. No, it really doesn't. There's a lot of shit that gets left out by both. The left tells you the little picture that they want you to see, and the right tells you the little picture that they want you to see. And the big picture, you're essentially looking at two little cutouts from the big picture. You're not going to get the whole story from the media, and it's a lot better if you're getting it directly like that. Now, that's not to say that these politicians will not spin when they do this. But you're going to know at least what's being said. You're going to know if the president comes out and says something, and you can look up information online that proves that what he said was not true. And it's easy sometimes, and when Trump makes a mistake, he's pretty good at making a mistake. There isn't going to be, Fox News not reporting on that he said it, and the left wing blowing it out of proportion. There's going to be you saying that he said something, you looking it up, going, well, that's not quite correct, and then you being able to look at the information that is correct and decide, whether you think he was spinning, whether you think he was just wrong, and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, just say, we have vintage memes here at Honey Badger Radio. It's like fireside chat. I'm very sorry, dear listener, if you thought your memes were the dankest of memes. But I think you'll find Honey Badger Radio's memes are the dankest of memes.
Yes. And there will be more. That's another thing, too, that we're going to get out of these next 4 years, are memes. So we'll see how that goes. It should be a lot of fun. Anyway, I guess that's it. I mean, unless there's a story that you guys wanted to go back to, but I think we talked about all of them at a decent length. So, yeah, the prostate, the voting, electoral thing, the Hamilton thing, Bill C-16, and Mark Zuckerberg basically trying to take over media. So yeah, I guess we'll just wrap it up. Guys, thanks for coming and joining us on today's Polecat Cast. I want to thank my co-hosts, Mike, Max, Hannah, and Scott, and I want to thank you guys, the listeners, as well as the people who contributed by writing, L. Kemlo and Mike J. thank you, as well as Araweg for his late submission. And if you guys are interested in joining us on the after show, we will be talking about Jennifer Lawrence today, and we will have more interesting content in the future. You know what to do. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Good night.